So a few days ago, I created a pocket out in the woods. And really, when you're doing TSI work, what's TSI, timber stand improvement? Well, most people use that term very loosely. They want to sound smart when they say it. And really, what does it mean? I like wildlife stand improvement. I like wildlife improvement, habitat improvement. Timber stand improvement most of the time means just that. You're improving the timber. When you're improving timber, you're rarely improving wildlife habitat, no matter what it is. You're improving boards per foot. It's more a forestry term. So I don't like when wildlife habitat is intertwined with timber stand improvement. It can be done, but you always want to have a wildlife plan first and fit the timber to that plan. In fact, we have timber out here we could cut under a forestry program, but we choose not to because I want it to be for all wildlife. And there might be some timber that we could harvest within that plan, but most of our projects are being completed by us cutting them, and this is one of those. I'm looking at timber stand improvement for wildlife stand improvement, meaning that we're creating pockets, usually cuttings every 40-50 yards in areas we want to. We're focusing specifically on the Aspen, some box elder areas. Most of the time we're cutting big timber down, we're not hinge cutting. We do hinge cut a little bit, and there's an area out that we hinge cut near this area that we're cutting today. But it's really about creating pockets where you can look up to the southern sky, southwest, southeast, and get that sunlight coming in to create thick areas. So if you have a thick area every 40-50 yards, that's generally that rule that you want to complete. And so we're removing canopy, planting those cuts, and getting that timber down in the area that deer would probably already use otherwise. Meaning, like in this case, we're trying to drop that timber so it goes downhill in a steep ravine. And that allows that sunlight to come up and hit those flats on the edge of where we're cutting to put thick cover in areas where deer would probably bed because it's flat, and they're not bedding or using typically that steep ravine area. So that's what we're doing here, the focus. But again, think of that 40-50 yard rule. Think about, you don't have to cut everything down in the woods. You're just creating pockets. That creates great escape cover for deer, browse for deer, but also rabbit cover, grouse cover, turkey nesting area. So you got to get the picture. It's good for all wildlife. Or traditional cuts, I've seen cuts on federal lands, for example, where it's such a select cut in favor of big timber and producing boards per foot that they don't open enough canopy, and in 5 years it's actually more open in the woods than it was before they cut. I've even seen that in up north, especially northern Wisconsin seems to be bad for that, where you get into more sugar maple areas and hard maple, and they'll cut, and it'll be so light that you hardly get any regeneration, and you're really just favoring bigger timber, bigger amounts, or larger diameter trees, and really get it into more big timber management. And that is the opposite of wildlife management. So we're going to go out and create some wildlife cuttings today, wildlife stand improvement, which likely wouldn't be what a forester would recommend for timber stand improvement. They're not one and the same. Just go follow along and check it out. Now, this is an example of these pocket cuts I'm talking about. This is where the deer travel. You see how steep it gets. It goes down to a ravine right past these cuttings. As it gets down there, it's super steep. The deer cross right up here. And so as they're crossing here and they're moving right here behind Jen, then I wanted to get a bunch of sunlight into here when you have the canopy on. So I planned some cuts right here, got them down, and we have a giant hole in the sunlight right there in the middle of the day. It'll come in here and flood this area. Sunlight will get back in here, and it just creates a browse pocket. It creates a browse pocket, and it creates a screening pocket so deer can be on the back side of it. And then this is where it flattens out on the top. So the deer are moving right through here. The top log that I cut, I completely cut it down, let it crush down the hill so that deer can step over it. But I didn't want to stop any deer movement. And really we're putting logs into an area where deer aren't using in the first place. It's super steep right there. And I'm not saying they never cross through there, but it's really difficult for them and they'd rather be up here. So, you know, could be a swamp edge that you have. where you're saying, okay, deer aren't going to actually live in the swamp, it's wet. We're dropping timber into that wet area along that edge. Sunlight can then flood into that edge, improve that edge habitat, and that's one way. You could have areas that are rocky, super steep, whatever it might be, but you're blowing timber. And if it's all flat on your land, then you're just creating pockets. You're dropping that timber down. People say, well, what way should it face? I can't stand when people talk about, well, it should look like a wagon wheel. It should be a canopy. Just get the timber down safely. Get a pocket down. That pocket could be the size of a small garage or a large garage, a small house, and quarter acre, half acre, acre. You need to get sunlight into it. Always look at the southerly sky. Make sure those tops are free so they can get sunlight down into there. And then you're cutting that timber. Go 40, 50 yards, do it again. 40, 50 yards, do it again. If your time is limited and you have a large woods, maybe do it every 80 to 100 yards with the thought that, well, next winter, early spring, I'll come back and fill in those areas in between, and then spread your efforts out. We choose to make cuttings all around the property, not just in one spot working outwards, because let's say I had time for 10 cuttings this year. Great time to cut January, February, March, April before leaf out. Let's say I had time to make 10 cuttings. Then I'd rather take 10 cuttings and spread it around 100 acres than take those 10 cuttings and put them all in the same 7-acre corner, because then I'm only improving 7 acres. I'd rather take those 10 cuttings and improve the entire 100 by spacing out my efforts. So something to think about. So I'm going to go look for another pocket. I'm kind of eyeing one up right over there. I'm going to go look at the timber. Obviously, I'm going to favor the hickory that we have here and maybe some poorly formed red oak or small white oak. And you can see, like right in here, there's a really nice red oak we're getting full sunlight through. White oak behind me that now gets more sunlight because we took some hickories around the outside. So it's not that you're not making good decisions based on the timber that's remaining and the quality of timber. I'd favor oaks if I can, but I'd rather have sunlight in browse pockets than a nearby oak, because the browse is going to do more. Browse deer can feed on from October to March. Acorns are here or there, and we got lots of acorns out here. I mean, obviously, if you're throwing your few oak trees on the property, you're not going to cut them down. So we're still trying to make good decisions, but some of the trees we choose to keep out here are our money trees. They're our big, straight red oaks. Those are our best money trees out on the property here. And I'm not saying they're huge, high dollar, but I want to keep them. We don't have a ton of them, so I'd rather keep them. And that's the difference between, quote, timber stand improvement and wildlife stand improvement a lot of times too, is you're favoring more wildlife cutting or lack of cutting than cuttings that are going to create timber. So we're going to look for another spot and get the equipment out, start cutting, which is the fun part. We have this ravine on this side, and I'm thinking about actually taking the machine and go around the back side and scout out that area. We can cut timber from both sides on this steep area. So I'm going to look on that back side, see if there's a good pocket to cut. And what's nice about that is we're not hunting back in here. And so we want this for bedding, deer going back and forth to the fields perpendicularly. But when they parallel these fields, that's where we can tap into them for hunting up top. So I don't mind cutting down here 100 yards in the woods and funneling deer up there as far as this parallel movement to the field edge. And that usually equals that parallel movement. It's typically cruising bucks going side to side where does are going straight line in and out. Now, I think what we're going to do instead is make a mess. So we're still making a pocket, but instead of we're using the ravine down there, I found there are, see, 1, 2, 3 aspen up here. And these aspen are super nice. They're all, looks like quaking aspen. We have quaking and big tooth. The big tooth are down in the bottoms, huge, big, even diameter, straight. And then we have these quaking aspen right here that are a little bit, I'd say less hardy, longer, shorter lives. And they're more on our edge habitat up here, where this used to be farm back in here, which is crazy. They're mixed in with some hickories too. So I really like that, because I can take down these along with the hickories. And the whole idea behind this is these are our most valuable wildlife trees on the entire property. More than oak, I would say the box elder is pretty critical too. Really prolific, good stem sprouts, great wildlife trees. But this is 7,000 shoots per acre, and there's no shoots of aspen coming up around here at all. When we cut this down, we're gonna fill this area with aspen. What's really cool is we already have a hinge cut pocket over here that was created 2 or 3 years ago, which we found a lot of rubs in here. It's a great screen. There's a lot of deer use, beds, rabbits. We have turkeys that come from out of this area. Deer can actually move through that, but there's a lot of sunlight. So it's a whole afternoon sun that is in this hole right here. And so by coming into here, one aspen tree is gonna drop that way. 2 other ones, along with a couple of hickories, are gonna go over our trail right here in the woods. Jen, you don't have to worry about it. You're not picking anything up.
No, I'm good.
That'll be a Wes and I job. I talked about when we first came over here, I think we're gonna make a mess instead. So we're gonna drop some timber in here. They're all gonna go. The aspen are going this way. We have some hickories coming this way. One of the aspens going up there into that pocket, and that allows sunlight to come right in here. We'll get 7,000 shoots per acre. It'll extend out 30 yards in all directions. And what do you think of that, Jen? Do you like this spot?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, we came in here the other day, and what'd you say?
I said it's too open.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to have a little bit more cover between here and the food.
Well, it's nice too, is we already have this pocket. We have the pocket that Joel helped cut during the charity event right here on the point. We have the pocket I cut a couple days ago, and then we'll do this pocket right up here. So I think we're pretty good, other than maybe we could find a pocket way up there. But other than that, I think we're pretty good right here. So
let's go.
Let's make a mess. Now I had to cut quite a few trees to get back to this first aspen. So this is the one we're after. This is the focus tree right here. But I had to clear a path. What I've tried to do is make it so that we can keep as little over our access trail as possible. We can get in and out different directions, but trying to make this as clean as possible for our cleanup. And so now this aspen can go straight across the trail. So we'll just have the trunk to deal with. But bottom line is we're getting a lot of sun already in midday right over here, and then we're going to get afternoon sun over here. So this is working out really perfect in an otherwise very open section of the woods. So you get this down and keep working back to the other aspen right here. That worked out really well. You got to plan these cuts out ahead of time. And what I like about this is they just went everywhere. In fact, this is almost like a triangle of cuttings. Deer can easily move through here, in and around all of these cuttings. And we're just gonna flood this area with thousands of shoots of aspen. And so we'll come back in here 2 to 3 years, and these will be 10 feet tall. And so the field edge is only about 30, 40 yards over there. So the more we take these cuttings up towards that field edge, get sunlight in here, the closer these does and fawns will bed up into this area. And it's been a real open area. So we're getting huge sunlight from over here. We favored that red oak, this red oak. So we're getting sunlight, more sunlight to the tops of these oaks. And then we get sunlight here in the afternoon. In fact, that sun is almost in this spot right over here, where it'll get full sun extending here. And when we already add the pocket of hinge cuts and cuttings that are already here, then we have cuttings that extend for about 100 yards in this strip. And I would say that's facing about like a 3 o'clock afternoon sun. So we're getting really hot sun coming down in here in the growing season, and a lot of regeneration. I hinge cut a couple smaller trees. I don't mind in some spots having that horizontal cut going across, and then shoots coming out of the side. Creates a wall of cuttings. The deer can still get all around it. They can get that browse. See, most of my cuts, a lot of people ask, how high are you making your cuts? What's ever easiest for you. I'm not going to bend down all the way down here, and I'm not going to be lifting up here at face height. So I really want these cuttings to be at waist high, and that's at the same time what's best for deer, because then that covers at their eye level, that browse that grows off the sides of these trunks or the stumps are at their level. So they have more food at their level. Really waste of a resource to cut these up high up here where the browse and the cover is growing above and outside of their reach. So I'd rather have it right here. And then you see, you know, I always try to use my eye protection, shield. I really like to be able to see. That's the most important thing. But chaps, gloves, and helmet, really critical. And you're really just picking your way through here and making those cuts. So always looking up, making sure there's not deadheads coming down. They call them deadheads for a reason. And even Jen, she's been here filming the whole time. I always make sure that I think the tree's going this way. I don't want her standing straight behind the tree. You want her standing off at an angle, a good 20 feet away, a trunk that she can get behind if needed, so to keep her safe. So always think about that if someone else cutting with you in the woods. And I suggest if you're cutting with a buddy, someone cut here, someone cut hundreds of yards over there. You don't want to have a cutting party where you're all cutting trees within 20 feet of each other. That's really dangerous. So I think this is, Jen?
Complete.
Other than some Wes and Jeff work, so that we can come back in here and clean up that trail. But man, I really like this pocket. What do you think?
I think it's great. I think it'll really add to the bedding here. Bring those does and fawns a little closer to the food, and then just extend that buck bedding right back there.
And you know what? That quaking aspen I talked about, they're not as long-lived of a tree. And as I'm looking around, you see that other quaking aspen over there that's on the ground?
Oh yeah, I saw it fell down.
A lot of times when those fall down, maybe we'll get some regeneration out of there. That looks like a live tree that just got hit by a lot of wind. I'm hoping I'm hoping there's still life there, but a lot of times they rot from the inside. You don't realize it, and then there's no life left in those roots. You want to cut them down before that happens. But really, I mean, again, we're smattered with oaks in here, and my favorite tree in here is aspen. So I'm able to cut. We cut 4 down right here. Cut a lot of other trees down to get those down. It creates a nice pocket here. I'd say this pocket of cutting is about, let's just say 20 yards by 20 yards. So 60 feet by 60 feet, pretty big pole building size, but that's what it takes, and it taps into, and most importantly, because you can have a cutting that's the size of a living room in your house, but you just want to make sure there's sun into it. So a lot of areas here that are on the side of a slope and there's a bench, we might cut the trees on the downhill side of that bench where we know bucks and deer in general are going to favor to bed. We'll cut down on this side, and because it's steep and facing southerly, then we can cut down a pretty small area, and it doesn't take much to get full southerly sun right into that spot. Whereas if that was level, you need to make a bigger cutting. Of course, higher canopy, more mature trees, you have to cut down a bigger area too. But it's perfect. We're getting great sun there, and when that sun continues down, deer can move through all these cuttings right now. And you pretty excited, Jen?
Yes, I am.
Is this what you're picturing?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for helping my vision.
Yeah, Jen had the vision. I'm just the cutter. Hey guys, thanks a lot for watching. We're getting our first taste of spring. It's supposed to be 51 degrees today. Still middle of the winter, but we're thinking about habitat. We're thinking about food plots, planting with Pure Wildlife Blends, our seed company. We're thinking about our web classes, books. Even if you can hire us, we still have a couple spots available for this year. So check out the website. Really appreciate you watching. We have a lot to offer, and I hope it can help you out this year.